This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Steven Simcox at his normal Wednesday position. Steven, I'm glad you're back on Wednesdays. Last week was wonky. You had you on Thursday, but it's nice for the people who have decided they're only going to watch the show on Thursdays to get maybe
get a taste of it.
Sometimes people eat the same, I only eat tuna on Thursdays. That's all I'm going to have. And then one day somebody goes, well, here's an Italian sub. And I haven't been living my life.
I didn't realize that I'm doing this on short rest. I mean, this is like Bochy going and getting Madison Bumgarner out of the pen in Game 7. I haven't had a full 7 days to digest my thoughts.
No.
Or research, just 6 days. So that's something to watch. If I start fading in segment 3, probably just haven't had the right amount of rest.
Go get Emery. He's over there.
I'll get Emery out of the pen. Get Emery, give some takes.
And look, I don't think we can get – if you haven't seen Emery on camera, but I don't know if we can get a shot of Emery.
I don't think I can pull that one off right now.
Can't pull that one off. But Emery does have a very eighth inning, hold reliever
– He does,
look to him. He's got the mustache. He's got kind of the crazy hair,
It looks like he might have a weird arm angle, side arm.
Yeah, he's coming in. Yeah, he's a submariner for sure. Emery's like Chad Bradford coming all the way down here. Yeah, I would think we could do that, Yeah, I think so.
Can I ask you a question about something I noticed about the decor?
Uh-huh.
How did you allow a Florida Gators soccer scarf to get up here?
I do not have autonomous control of this whole place.
I do.
Yeah, Jack does. And Jack was very industrious last year and started sending out emails to sports information departments and saying hey, if you guys have some gear or whatever, here's a link to our channel, here's our set. We don't care what it is. We need decor. And surprisingly enough, and maybe almost totally out of spite, maybe the largest school to respond to him was the Florida Gators. They sent a Gator soccer scarf. They sent us a Billy Donovan bobblehead, which I'm not totally sure where it is.
It's over here.
It's over there.
Paul put it in the trash before. I'm not totally sure where it is.
Yeah. I might have ripped its head off now. But they sent in a couple of other things that have,
the autograph basketball.
They have a signed autograph basketball that sits over there. Right behind me, during the show quite a bit, when it rotates in and out of what we're doing. So the University of Florida sent us a lot of stuff. Again, I think for spite.
I think so too. I think that's a good bet. I hope they send more. We need a Tim Tebow devotional down here, a Joakim Noah hair bun.
Those are my least two favorite athletes in the entire world.
Oh, I know.
I regard them in the same kind of annoying.
Well, I think it's a good thing though for you, Paul, because you guys have expanded your horizons in this new world.
Yes,
you're a national show.
Yeah,
and so even you can stomach these things.
Yeah, I do. The best man at my wedding, Ryan, was watching the show the first day when we were sitting over here, and we weren't doing it at the table. And I don't think, you can see it in one angle. You can see it in this angle, the Gator soccer thing. So we were doing it, and you could see it, and the first text, not hey, you're doing a great job, I'm enjoying the show, but he and I, were in college together at FSU, was what the is that? I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's a Gator soccer scarf behind you, and it had literally been there for 4 or 5, 6, maybe 10 months at that point. After Jack put it up the first day, I quit you quit noticing these things. You come in.
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah. The set turns over quite a bit. These helmets aren't always the same. We move some over. We move some back. We move things around. So it does look different. Look, if you've noticed, the pennants are facing a different direction than they were last week. Just to keep it fresh. We have a small space to work with here. So we try to keep it interesting and unique. And I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. He's like, how could you ever forget about that? Like,
You're turning on us, Paul. You changed, man.
yeah. Like the next thing you know, you're going to be like, hey, I'm super excited to have Jaquez Green on the show today. You know who I love? Riedel Anthony and Danny Werfel and like all these guys.
Big commercial Paul.
Fred Taylor should be in the Hall of Fame. Don't at me. All these things. But yeah, it would happen like that, Yeah.
I would say you advocating for Billy Napier would be part of that, but as an FSU fan, that might be something you want to do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Given his tenure so far.
And I will tell you, I have advocated for him in so much as I think he walked into a bad situation, much worse than people understand. Mm-hmm. And because they're an SEC school with a fantastic history, but because they are who they are,
everybody thinks it's just going to be
Everybody
easy.
thinks it's going to be one of those things like, oh, we just, Jim McElwain and Dan Mullen and, Will Muschamp were drinking on the job and napping in their office and they didn't care. Well, it's not just those guys. I do think that there is, because I saw it with Willie Taggart at FSU, and I've seen it at Miami for, everybody since Larry Coker left. Where there was this they'll just turn it like Michigan. You can say it like everybody between Lloyd Carr and Jim Harbaugh. They're like, right. Oh, well, they just don't know that the switch to turn the lights on is really on the other wall.
There's some easy code nobody's cracked
yet. There's easy code that nobody's cracked yet. No, it's really hard to do. Mm-hmm. And the first thing you have to do is quit thinking that anything that's happened before the day you walked in matters. I think that's Steve Sarkisian's key, is that in no way, he understood the brand he was getting, but to him, 2005 was only good in that he could walk into a fundraising room with Vince Young, and Vince Young could go like, hey, I love Steve Sarkisian. Give them money. And he's like, thank you. That's all. But walking into a room and recruiting a 17-year-old kid and being like, hey, do you remember 2005? They're like, I do not. I was not alive.
Don't have great memories of that, Steve.
Yeah. My dad told me it was a cool game. He knew that meant nothing.
Right.
I think that Billy Napier and the people around at Florida have not quite figured out that Urban Meyer's been gone for a very long time now. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel that long, but when they're doing documentaries about you, even stupid bullshit crap, no information documentaries that should have never been allowed to hit television, streaming, cell phone, Quibi, when that was a thing. You remember Quibi?
I do remember Quibi.
Quibi was like, hey, we're going to do 3-minute television shows because people are stupid and they can't do 30 anymore. All of that. When they're making documentaries about you, you've either been such a huge story, like this murder happened 2 years ago and we now have all the mentions or all the information, or it's been a while.
Or in Florida's cases, both.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's I think what that they deal with. So I have, and no one believes me. This is where my credibility falls. I think Garrett is the most likely to believe me on this.
All right, now I need to hear this. What is this?
Okay. I am willing, because again, I'm Henry Clay. I'm the great compromiser. That's your history lesson for the day. Look up Henry Clay, the great compromiser.
Garrett, look that up. Tell me about it later.
On it. It's back in the 1800s. He was a congressman who was always about getting legislation through. Okay. He negotiated very well. He's never been deader than right now.
I'm about to say, I don't think we got a lot of those people now.
No, he's been dead for a long time, but somehow now he's even deader than you could possibly be dead. When there's only really one dead, he's more dead now. But I would be willing to trade off some wins and losses with Florida and Miami if it was like the 90s again. Because that was way more fun than only one of us being good at the same time, right, and the game's kind of getting drab. The only thing that most times when one team is good and the others aren't good, mm-hmm, that's entertaining is the fact that you could ruin their season.
Right.
That's it. As opposed to, man, this is for the person who wins this game. is probably going to the Natty. Those kind of things, those kind of stakes, I miss those.
Well, it's good for all the schools.
It's good for everybody. A rising tide lifts all boats.
Yes.
I truly believe that. Now, do I believe it enough that if Florida got really good again, I wouldn't also be mad about it at the same time? Look, I'm entitled to believe two things at once that don't necessarily agree with each other and drive myself insane. It's called being human. You know?
Do you believe him, Garrett? Do you believe this theory?
I honestly, I do. Especially after seeing how he was emotionally destroyed this year when they did so well. I definitely get it.
Yes. I was as disappointed about something as I've ever been in sports in my life. And I've been a Cowboys fan my whole life, and I haven't, do you know, the personal milestones in my life since they won a Super Bowl? Graduated high school and college. I've had 5, 6 different jobs. I've been here. I've gotten married.
Yeah.
I've watched a bunch of other people get married. The people that were at my Super Bowl party in high school, when they beat the Steelers, I was in 7 of their weddings. I watched all that happen. I hadn't even seen a Playboy at that point in my life, other than on the gas station rack.
Welcome to therapy with Paul.
Yeah, I mean, so you think about all the things, I didn't
Oh, I know, Paul. I've never even seen an NFC title game. I mean, I
Yeah.
have, but I was a toddler.
Yeah, so all these things. Yeah, the last time that they were in the Super Bowl, you were not using a toilet.
No, I was just toddling around.
Yeah.
Lions fans have it better than me.
Yeah.
Lions fans.
You had, the last time the Cowboys won the Super Bowl, you and the toilet were not friends.
That's right.
That's it.
Sometimes I'm still not, but for different reasons.
But you guys, when it came time, you're like, nope, I'm just going to do it here. That's it. This is somebody else's problem. That's how long it's been. That's the pain I felt. And even that, and having to go, and believe me, there's no harder training in sports media you can do than having to be a good reporter of the team you love. Because it is easy to veer off the path. Because if you love a team and you cover them, it is so easy to veer off the path. This is why my friend RJ Ochoa, who runs SB Nation, Blogging the Boys, I have such admiration for him because he is a dyed-in-the-wool Cowboys fan before anything else. Loves the Cowboys. But also, on a fan site, does some of the most critical work of what they're doing. He's very good at that, and it doesn't sound like whining. It's very intellectual and high level. And so, but when you do that, and RJ and I have sat next to each other at many Cowboys games and had to watch them lose in the playoffs or lose big regular season games that cost them the division, or you see the season going off the tracks, and then walk down to a locker room and talk to a guy while he puts on his pants about what just happened. It's a weird thing, man. It's a weird, I understand that that's kind of the only time you can do it, but there's got to be a better way that we just haven't thought of yet. Where hold on, let me get dressed, and then I will tell you about the game.
Right.
Good or bad, where we're just sitting there you don't really need that much cologne. This is only open for a half hour, so if you could just...
Let's just do it real quick.
There's a bunch of guys we all have to talk to, so if you could just, put it on an undershirt before you put your suit on, pull your pants on, you don't have to do the whole thing. I don't need to see the drip. I just need, those things, it could be completely different. So I absolutely, I absolutely have gone through the pain. And nothing, like you said, Garrett, hurt having a committee go,
nah.
Yeah.
Well, the rising tide lifts all boats argument, it really is, it speaks to what the SEC has done in that those, obviously they want to beat each other. There's high level competition there, but they do have this shared identity where they sort of support one another outside of the context of the conference. And just the fact that all the teams are good has meant everybody is invested in it. I mean, aside from there's a couple exceptions, but for the most part, everyone is at least trying.
One, you got to
do it.
It's kind of
the best.
It's kind of like being the only kid who doesn't wear a tux to the prom if you don't.
Yeah.
like, there's a point where like, oh man, he's such a rebel, but like, yeah, but you know,
Let's try a little bit.
let's try it.
Let's make some effort here.
Yeah. So
Come on, Vandy.
Yeah, exactly. Vandy's like, no. We are.
Yeah, we're going to space. Okay, nerds.
Yeah. Oh, do you guys love cancer more than we do? Because apparently we're the only ones fighting it. So, no, there are, again, the rising tide lifts all boats. You don't want, like, I don't want them. And my agreement is I'm happy with them being successful to a point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a limit for sure.
But at the point where they become more successful, and like, then it's like, all right.
I just need somebody to push me a little bit.
This is not the deal. The deals we're all supposed to kind of trade this off, not one run away with it, you know.
You're like a quarterback who is there in the spring for a QB battle, and it's a QB battle, but you know you've got the job. You don't need the backup to win the job. You just need them to make sure you go through all the practice reps.
Yeah, and I need to know that, like, if I sprain my ankle, that the team's not going to lose. That's what I want to know. Like, that's all I know. Like, and I don't need, and the other thing that I think that the three teams, at least fan bases, haven't understood is the fact that they haven't been good all three times again has led to the SEC exploding, because now Alabama and Georgia in particular, and everyone else, but Alabama and Georgia in particular, who, you know, border the state, LSU, you know, those three teams can go in and get the guys, and not all of them. It's not like all of Georgia's team is from Florida or all Alabama's team. Mm-hmm. It's where, you know, the best quarterback in Florida used to go to one of those three schools. And then they could go into another state and go like, well, you know what? We want the best quarterback in Texas this year because the Florida guys aren't really that good. They can go to Alabama and people would be like, okay, well, we got the best quarterback in Florida. And like, yeah, we didn't like him. So we went to Texas or California or New Jersey or wherever he just happens to be from and got him. Right. You know, like Jesse Palmer's from Canada, for God's sakes. You know, like that's, you know, what they did. Now, Alabama and Georgia are taking those guys and like, hey, we've got all the best players in our state and the surrounding states and any state that we walk into. Mm-hmm. Like, that's where it's changed. But when you had three schools that were like, you know, just kind of volleying back and forth those recruits, you were all good at the same time. And now, by, you know, none of this, like, since 2003, none of the three schools, all three schools haven't been good at the same time.
Right.
Also, it's allowed UCF to build itself up to a point where it's a power conference team now. Mm-hmm. You know, outside of their university growing, but you've got now a different player in the game because you didn't do it right for a long time.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I mean, it's changed a little bit post NIL because A&M and Texas has so much money to spend now, and not that they didn't before, but pre NIL there was a few years where it was like, why are all the best kids in Texas going to, you know, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Ohio State? Well, that's where they're winning titles. I mean, that's where the titles are being won. That's where the NFL players are being developed, and it's a national landscape now.
Yeah. I do think, and I've said this a lot, Garrett and I have had this conversation, the reason that there's only one national title in Texas since segregation, since desegregation, there's only one, is that Texas is too obsessed with itself. You know, like they're like, hey, we don't need to recruit, we don't need to get on a plane, you know, to go anywhere, we're just going to do here. Well, no, like when the other states are all winning, like schools from other states are winning, like Oklahoma should be the biggest thing. Like when Oklahoma's taking your players and winning, you're like, hey, we need to just leave. And like, you know, if they put one of ours in the hospital, we put one of theirs in the morgue, kind of a deal. Yeah, like, let's go. Like, all right, fine. You're going to take this guy? Oh, yeah. The guy we got's better than the guy you took from us. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's what they need to do. But they've all, like, now they've all figured it out because, you know, if there's a kid from Rutgers who wants to, you know, who could be an NFL first-round draft pick and he wants to, you know, actually win the conference title, if Texas calls, Texas will call him now.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the best linebacker in the country and he plays at Rutgers? Well, not anymore, he doesn't.
Get your suitcase, buddy.
Yeah. We're going to teach you about barbecue and weed. They probably have legal weed in New Jersey. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Anyway,
we'll look that up too. Garrett.
Here, we're going to teach you about the unencumbered joy of not legal weed. That you feel like you're doing something wrong, even though if you cross the border in any direction, you wouldn't be. just how it is.
The danger makes it better.
Yeah. Don't go for these mellow highs that are accepted socially. Go for the ones that are
still under the board.
You could get in trouble for. All right. When we come back, I want to talk 5-7 playoff and the AQ question that will come up today during the commissioners' meetings. I don't know. I know that it's probably the Big Ten who's put this through. But we're going to talk maybe, this might be a conspiracy theory or why even having AQs is stupid and why it could upend the playoff before it gets started. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Triple Option. Paul Catalina, Steven Simcox, locked on Horned Frogs. Always good to see Steven. I mean, we go back a ways. Steven and Garrett and I have been through some wars together.
Yeah.
We really have.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah, we have.
Definite trouble button.
Yeah. Over, when you look back on it and, how stressed we were about, such a little thing.
Yeah, I told my wife a couple months ago, I was like, man, I feel so much calmer these days. And she was like, yeah, I can tell you why if you want. And I kind of put it together eventually.
Yeah. Was it Monday I talked about my wife getting me Sirius XM?
Yes, it was Monday.
So, yeah, I'll tell you this. You'll enjoy this. Okay. So, I've never had Sirius XM.
Me either, other than the free trials.
Yeah, I've had a couple of those, but when we were working at the radio station, you can't. Mm-hmm. It's a waste of money.
Right.
It's many good things that are on it. It's a waste of money. So she was like, how did you never have it? I'm like, listen, the minute I would start listening to something I'm going to listen to the Comedy Channel or I'm going to listen to 80s on 8 or whatever, somebody's going to call me are you hearing what's going on in the station right now? No. Crap.
We got dead air.
All right.
Oh, yeah, I knew. No problem.
Oh, yeah. What? Oh, hold on. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, no, I had it on a different one. You got to pretend I was listening to one of our other stations in the cluster. Accidentally. I wasn't trying to pretend like there's other things in the world.
Yeah.
Just to get away for my 10-minute drive to Bush's Chicken. That's all I wanted was, to hear Aha Take on Me just for a minute while I went and got some chicken fingers. That's all I wanted in my life. So now I have it. It's great. And I feel like it's one of those people, I feel like a Lithuanian kid getting Levi's in the 90s. I have the American jeans. Do you see the American jeans? Oh my gosh. It's amazing. Have you guys seen the show Cheers? It is fun. That's how I feel about Sirius Radio. It's just, I'm the kid who got Levi's when the rest of the world's known about them because I was behind. I was in the Eastern Bloc.
You're like a kid in a third world country that thinks the Bills are the NFL's greatest dynasty.
Yeah.
It's man, Jim Kelly keeps pulling it off.
I would love the NFL has that international pathway program now, and I would love them to find a kid that gets drafted by the Bills, walks into the thing and then finds there's no Lombardi trophies. It's wait a minute, hold on.
He's wearing an Andre Rison jersey, listening to TLC. Nobody told him about what happened.
It's just walks in it's been my dream to be here, to be with such champions as the Buffalo Bills. And goes to the owner and be hey, where are the Lombardi trophies? And they're oh, I'm sorry, like, why do you think we have Lombardi trophies? And it just shows, like, pictures of him as a youth.
All the memorabilia, yeah. Where are all the Thurman Thomas MVPs?
Yeah, what's happening? I always felt bad for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, okay, let's get to this playoff talk.
Okay.
Because you distracted me too much.
things have gone off the rails a little bit.
They're off the rails.
I might not be back next Wednesday.
No. This podcast will more and more, as I listen to more Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, resemble that probably.
That's good.
Because I love it. It's my favorite one.
It's a good podcast.
But I'm very concerned about the Big Ten or the SEC, and I don't think it's the SEC because they didn't want any automatic qualifiers, because Greg Sankey's plan, to me, is better. What he wants to do is he wants to get those first 5 in, and then of the other 7, get 4 to 5 of them just because that's how it fell, and go, weird. Well, I told you, we're the best conference. That's just how it's going to be. Sorry to the rest of you. Congratulations to the one random ACC and Big Ten team that, like, crawled up out of the muck, and got in this year. Good thing that Florida State and Clemson were both good, kind of a deal, which I know was probably not going to be the case in 5 years. But that's, I think, what he wants to happen. So then he can turn around and say, see, it does not matter what you do. We are inevitable. We're going to be there. We're the best. Everybody else is chasing us.
Yeah, we call our spots, essentially.
The Big Ten just has big alumni bases. That's the only thing they have. We're the ones who are actually good at this sport. Like, that's what we're doing. So, but I think the Big Ten, because now they've got 18 teams, which is more than everybody else, will say, like, well, we need the number was rumored was 4. I cannot imagine that they think they would get 4, because if somebody walked in and said, okay, they're going to get 4, and the SEC is going to get 4, well, then you're guaranteeing that everybody else is only getting 1, because the SEC is not just going to let them have 4. And there will be years where if you did that, of the 8, there probably won't be 8 schools from each one that would make it. So I'll just say, like, say the Big Ten gets 3 on average every year, which I would think is probably a safe bet, because when you have Ohio State and Michigan, as good as they are right now, it's a good bet to say that both those teams will be in, especially given how the schedules work. And then you throw Oregon or Washington into the mix, one of those 2 will get in.
That's a good point. I forgot about that. I was thinking, okay, is Penn State going to get in just based on the fact that they beat everybody else?
So you have Oregon or Washington, or maybe it is Penn State. Like, you're going to have a third team that's in the top 12. Okay, well, if you have 4 SEC teams to get in, let's just say, for sake of argument right now, it would be Georgia, Alabama, even with a coaching change, LSU, and Ole Miss this year, because I think Ole Miss is probably going to be at least the 4th best team in that conference.
Or Texas.
Or Texas, yeah, okay. So let's take out Alabama and put in Texas. Just give Alabama a year to reset. So Texas is in there. Okay, so that's 4. Well, there's 12 teams. Now you've got your other, well, that's now 13 teams in the playoff, because you've got, well, I guess you'd have 2. So then you've got 3 other teams that are going to be in, right? Because the other conference champions. And then it leaves just 1 random at-large spot. So you're going to have years, if you give them 4 automatic qualifiers, where their 4th best team might be 18th. And so that means they'd have to jump 6 or 7 other teams to get in the playoff. And then you're back where you started, where everybody's like, this is a terrible system. Why do we keep letting you do this? Plus, since everything has to be unanimous, I can't imagine that the other leagues would vote for this.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to see how, like, what was the Charlie Murphy about Rick James? He's a habitual line stepper.
Yeah.
Like, the habitual line stepping that the Super 2 will do. Trademark Craig Smoke. Super 2.
Yeah, I mean, it is going to be fascinating to see what they demand, because I think they feel like they have more power than ever. On the surface, this feels like the best compromise for everybody. You get the 5 automatic qualifiers, which means you should, in theory, get at least 1 group of 5 team in most years. Probably going to have to go on the road, but is what it is. And then you have your at-large bids, and that's really kind of where it comes into play. But I just think it's always interesting to me the motivation that we see from these other conferences outside the Big Ten and the SEC. I feel like the Big 12 is a very clear direction with Brett Yormark. They're aware of the gap between them and everybody else, but they're trying to find creative ways to like close that and continue to remain competitive. The ACC is sort of in flux because of its situation, and of course, you know, the Pac-2 is its own animal. But I mean, you would think, Paul, with it having to be unanimous, they should be able to thwart this. But I've sort of thought that along all the steps of this journey, and it still ended up being about what the SEC and the Big Ten want. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out.
I feel like, and I hope that this metaphor lands, that if you are a conference, just say like the American or the Mountain West, that lets, or the ACC for God's sakes, that's let yourself get talked into everything by the Big Ten.
Right.
If you let yourself get talked into this, it's like, you know, a husband going to wife and going, no, this is why having an open marriage will be better for you. Like, this is how you win in this. You're like, just feel like this is a way for you to sleep with other people.
Read this Joe Rogan article.
yeah. Read this. This is why this is better for you. And which happens, look, this is happening in American business now all the time. You know, us having this big sports merger streaming system is better for the customers than them having to spend 5 extra minutes looking for something. If they can just hit a button or yell out and then the thing comes up, then that's better than having competition on the open market. Like, it's us, like, you don't know what to do with this money. But that's kind of what they're saying is you won't even know what to, like, do you really want maybe a second playoff spot?
It's so much responsibility.
You wouldn't even know what to do with it. Like, you know, we let you have a hamster and you couldn't take care of it, so you can't have a dog. You know, like those kind of things, that's got to stop. You got to stand up and say, no. We're not just going to keep letting you bigger and bigger and bigger. Right. You guys are not Amazon.com. Like, let's stop this and let's put our foot down. But that's the talk that's going to be kind of in there. And I cannot imagine that the Big Ten might float it out there just see what happens. Like, you know, but ultimately, everybody else should be like, no. Especially if I'm the Big 12 or the ACC right now, I'm going to say, get out. Just walk out of this room until your attitude changes, and you can come back in and talk to us like an adult.
And they have to flip the narrative about, I know there's some results that are pretty damning in this regard, but college football is different than, at the same time, though, there's no other sport like this that lives in hypothetical scenarios so often.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this team they couldn't possibly compete with this other team. Well, let's play the game and find out. Like, what's wrong with playing the games?
Yeah.
People talk about, like, having blowouts in the playoff like it's some horrible thing for America. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, if there's a lopsided game, it'll be fine. Like, it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. And now we have more rounds, so we have the ability to kind of parse this out in a better manner. But, you know, all the stuff about, and sorry to bring up the Florida State thing again, but just like, oh, well, Florida State couldn't have competed. And then, you know, their result in the bowl game shows it. Well, no, it doesn't. That was a totally different thing.
That was a silent walkout.
Yes, that was quiet quitting is what it was.
That was totally what it was. Like, I know people will say, like, 63-3. Like, that was basically the players thumbing their nose at the committee and going, listen, we're not going to play your dog and pony show.
Right.
So we're not making any money off of this. We're just going to go. You know.
Yeah, their approach would be totally different if they played Alabama. And, you know, TCU got whipped by Georgia, but they won a game to get there. Like, it wasn't like they just automatically got put in the national title game. They meet Michigan to get to that ball game, and they were totally outmatched in that game. But
so here's the thing. Michigan would have been too.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, you can't take those results and just be like, well, we can just never do this again.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not how anything works in competition. No. So you have to stand your ground and be like, okay, like, let us play, and if you beat us, you beat us. But like, you have to let us in the tournament.
I love how, like, you can't apply the logic of basketball to football with a lot of these people, because basketball, like, there have been blowout national championship games.
Sure.
But there's also Duke and Butler that really came down to Duke
last
being
shot.
Yeah, it came down to the last shot, and it really came down to the fact that throughout that tournament, the officials had, like, subconsciously determined that Duke isn't going to, like, Zubek is not going to get a fifth foul. Yeah. I mean, it was like 4 games in a row. He's at 4 fouls, like, ran straight into somebody, and they're like, what
are you going to do?
I mean, how's he supposed to stop? He's so big. Like that, like, those things happen. And then there are ones that are, like, ridiculous blowouts, and, like, ridiculous blowouts of 2 1 seed, like a 1 seed and a 1 seed. Teams that everybody was waiting to see, like, oh man, I can't wait to see these 2 teams play. And then it's a blowout, and you're like, oh, well, I guess the other one wasn't really a 1 seed. No, they just had a crappy day that day.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it was the worst matchup they could have gotten. There's a lot of things that happen. Like, well, why don't you just do that in football? And they're like, well, football's different. There's only 5 guys in basketball. There's 11. That's 6
Very
more.
complicated.
There's helmets, and the ball isn't round. Like, what are you? There's kicking. Like, don't even.
Totally different sport. Yeah.
Don't even. No, it's like, look, just let it happen. The College World Series is a fantastic example.
Yeah.
If the College World Series was selected like the college football playoff is, I'll just tell you, my alma mater and Mike Martin, may he rest in peace, Mike Martin would have 17 College World Series titles. Because they would have been like, well, I mean, we don't want, this team doesn't deserve to knock Florida State out 2 in Q.
Sure.
They're not going to be there. TCU was one of those teams that did that to them. Yeah. You know, like, TCU doesn't belong there. I don't care how good Jim Schlossnagel's been. Like, they're just cute. Right. You know, like, let's do that. So every other sport in college has this, except football.
Do you think making the 12-team playoff will hold the same significance as making the 4-team playoff? I mean, I don't think it matters one way or the other, but...
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Because I think things are going to change. The way that roster's going to be built. Also, I mean, we're looking at the inevitable break-off where, you know, the power schools, and I do think that there'll be more schools in this than people think, but this new tier of the NCAA, you know, because there are schools that will want to run in the, like, swim in this water and will spend the money to do it because they don't want to look at their fans and be like, look,
we're playing for a lesser title or whatever.
We're gonna stay down here. They're like, no, you go into Hawk for this. We're not going to stand for, like, you won't get any of our money for a science lab if you don't try to win. You know, those things. We like, I know that we're just Wake Forest, but we
care about this.
We care about this. You know, like, that's how it's gonna be. We're lowly Pitt, but you know, we want this feeling. Like, well, you could maybe win it more often. The students like, no. We don't want to win the lesser thing. We want to try to win the other thing. And even if we don't, we know what we're trying. So there'll be more people in that, and then they'll just have to sit down the App States of the world and be like, sorry, it's over for you. Yeah. Like, this is your thing now.
Good luck.
We gave it the old college try, and you guys should be super proud of yourselves, but, you know, we're moving on. And so I think it will, especially as we move on down the line. And it's probably going to wind up being 16 eventually because TV will be like, look at the ratings. The bye weeks are killing us. Like, let's do it more. Let's change the whole calendar, which they need to do anyway. So, yeah. Like, right now, I think right now, after these first 2 years, they're going to be kicking themselves that there's 10, 12, 20 days between games. They're going to be like, no, we need to, like, get this back on TV.
Do you ever see a scenario where D3 does like 32 teams, but there's no bowl system, right? It's just the postseason. Yeah. And maybe it probably coincides with tiers and how this all ends up going. But could we just get playoff tournament as opposed to Mayo Bowl, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I think the home sites, we talked about this in the main show yesterday. Here's what I think is going to shift this in a way that people may not anticipate. If you are, Dan Wetzel was on with us yesterday and explained it it's a fascinating way. So this year, Michigan would have had the first round bye. Georgia would have been the 5th seed, and Georgia would have gotten to host a playoff game in Athens. And Michigan would have been playing in like the Rose Bowl or something. And while they love that, they're going to see Athens, Georgia, full of 100,000 people, the tailgating, the money they're going to make on that game, and there's like not even the TV money. Like the money that Athens, Georgia, and the university are going to pull in from hosting that game.
One playoff game, right?
Which Dan Wetzel very eloquently pointed out. This would be the biggest, if we hosted a playoff game in Waco or Fort Worth, it would be the biggest sporting event to ever happen at that university,
Yeah.
to have a college football playoff game. You couldn't top it. It would be the biggest thing that could happen because the NCAA Final Four is never going to be here. Now, first round of NCAA tournaments can wind up at these places.
Yeah.
But even then, like, it's the first round, you know. But if you have that draw and then Michigan has to not have a home game and then go to Pasadena, they're going to go,
We don't like this.
we don't like this. And I do think, and it's going to take some time because, again, the wheels of college football turn slow. It's like, you know, a caveman like spinning it like this. They're going to have to cut the nuts off of the New Year's Six Bowls. Bottom line, that's what they're going to have to do is say, this is antiquated. We're sorry about your racket going away, but you know, you can still have bowl games, but you're not involved in the postseason. Well, you're not involved in the playoff.
Now, that's a fascinating point. I didn't think about the hosting angle and how that kind of screws over the top seeds.
Like, it doesn't, like,
It doesn't from a competitive standpoint,
but like,
but just the idea of,
and it's just something they're going to want. Like, they're
Yeah.
not going to say like, oh, darn, we have, you know, Georgia gets to take care of the team that we didn't really want to play anyway. But like,
Right.
it's going to be the whole, and the fans will dictate this too. Like, well, I'd rather kind of be the fifth seed, you know. Notre Dame, look, if Notre Dame's in the top 12, if they're in one of the top seeds, they're never going to get the bye because they're not in a conference. And it's the deal that they've made and they know that they're going to, like, here's the benefit to them because, again, it's really hard to win the national title. They haven't done it since 1988. So let's face it, they're, you know, the likelihood of them doing it. But if they're going to be in the mix, you're going to have a game in South Bend in one of the best college football meccas, you know, like there is, you know, one of those places. So worth it to them because, you know, probably once every 3 or 4 years at least, South Bend, Indiana is going to have a big party in December.
it also makes me think, with all the talk this year about, and baseball and football are completely different, but there was so much talk this year about the baseball playoff format because all the teams that had these short wild card series got some momentum and they go into, you know, top seed in the league and they win. The first time that we see a 1 seed maybe get knocked off after a bye week, are we going to get this discussion of, oh, well, Georgia won by 25 in front of their home fans. They worked some things out. They got juiced up. They got some momentum. They come in to play us, and then they win that ball game. I don't know. It's an interesting discussion.
Well, I think it is. And look, if you're the first seed, you might have 20 days off between college, like your championship game and that playoff game. So they have 20 days off, and the other one only has 10, and they've like already worked it out. Like, you know, all right, darn it, we lost that. You know, we had that first loss of the year, lost to LSU. Well, no more. We're gonna we'll thump Oklahoma today and move on, or whoever it is. You know, Kansas State, and now we've got our momentum, and you've just been sitting there, like preparing for 2 different, you know, kind of watching and letting your guys rest up. Yeah, it's a factor. You're going to have to handle it well. So, I don't know. But anyhow, all right, when we come back, 2 topics. Wild college basketball night last night because UConn got punished, which I didn't think was really possible. Like, everybody can lose, but I didn't think they got beat bad last night. Plus, we'll do some NFL draft rapid fire. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Steven Simcox, locked on Horned Frogs, I'm Paul Catalina. The nicest compliment I've ever received on any chat post ever.
Wow.
Just now. And that includes yesterday. Kim Coulter said some very nice things. He even texted me. It was great. But retired stockbroker says, Paul Catalina, once again, you, as Key Rock, the unfrozen caveman lawyer, speak the truth. Now, if you don't get that reference, I highly
Bill and
suggest...
Ted?
What?
Is that Bill and Ted? Or
No,
the
that's Phil Hartman, who was number one all-time greatest Saturday Night Live cast member. I will die on that hill. His number one overall best character to me was Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer. You need to look it up. It is, I'll play it for you after the show, Steven.
Okay.
It is one of the, just smoothly funniest things he's ever done.
Yeah, I missed that reference. My first thought was like the Geico cavemen bit.
No, this is probably even ripping off of that because they look
Very
kind of like
similar.
Key Rock. But yes, no, it was like one of those things where like this is a show, like it's a show, you know. He used to be a caveman, now he's a lawyer. Like that was the thing. And instead of him sounding like a caveman, he just looked like a caveman and he wore a suit. And he would be in front of this like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, when I saw a solar eclipse like the one I saw in my condo in Mexico City last year, I think, is the moon eating the sun? I don't know. I'm a caveman. That was the bit. It's
a good bit. Yeah.
It was a good bit, and they made it. I think they did maybe 3 or 4 of them. It wasn't like
Wasn't like a recurring thing.
it was recurring, but
But not-
recurring
yeah.
back in that era meant that they were going to do like 5 of something and then let it go.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be like the cheerleaders that they did
All the
50
time.
times.
Yeah.
Which was fine either way. But like they would, I think there were like 6 Conehead sketches over, 4 years. It was just something they would do it like once or twice a year and then like move on with it, And then like even after that, that was kind of the thing. But Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer was just so good.
Insano Man. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah.
That was what I was thinking
Okay,
of.
Insano Man. Yeah, no. They Phil Hartman, again, and I will die on that hill of
Best SNL cast member.
best in that, like most like lead sketches, backup characters. If you look at the first Matt Foley sketch, he's the dad. He is the only one who doesn't break. He's just right there,
While Farley's just jumping up and
Yeah,
down.
David Spade's got to cover his face. Christina Applegate is like about to wet herself, like all that. And then he's just right down the middle the whole time. Anyway, college basketball last night, UConn, big loss for them. Now, it's probably not going to change anything, but it shows that, look, if you can bomb threes on this team, they're vulnerable.
I mean, we were kind of at the point with UConn where it was like, are they unbeatable? Like we've seen sometimes, in basketball in the past. Not so much lately. I think one of the cool things about the tournament now is the parity with the portal and with all the freshmen that play. You just have different teams every year. But, yeah, Creighton hit a lot of threes. They played well and showed some vulnerability from UConn. So I think that could bode well for everybody, namely a team like Houston, which is coming off a big win against Iowa State on Monday, that they at least look like there's a chance to take them down, especially on neutral floor.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so now another night in the Big 12 and another, 3 games that all, the only one, Tech nips TCU 82-81 in Lubbock, which is a really great showing for TCU on the road. To, go to Lubbock and barely lose. You can go to Lubbock and get throttled really easily. Ask Kansas.
Yeah, kind of a missed opportunity for them. They blew a lead late. Both teams lost their big men were out. Warren Washington's been out for Tech for a little bit now. Ernest Uday was out for TCU. But Tech, they got buckets when they had to, and it's a tough place to play. TCU missed a few free throws down the stretch, but mainly they just couldn't score in the half court, down the stretch of that game. But, it's just such a tough league, man. TCU's a team, if they could have won that game last night, they'd be 8-5, but now they're 7-6, and it's only a 1-game difference, but it feels like a big difference when you blow a game like that.
Yeah.
That was winnable.
Baylor, could have really used a big win on the road against BYU as they go in to welcome Houston this week to the Pavilion. That did not happen. They started off really well. They were making all their shots early. And then about halfway through the first half, BYU got the home crowd behind them and never really looked back. Baylor, I would not call it a bad game for Baylor as their bad games go. They lost by 7, but from the point where they lost the lead in the first half, never got it back. So just one of those things where they had played 2 or 3 games in a row where they controlled from beginning to end. That did not happen in Provo last night.
I was a little surprised by this just because it felt like Baylor might be hitting their stride and being a team that could go on the road and win a game like that. But I've been super impressed with BYU all year. I didn't expect much from them in basketball. And, Provo has kind of turned into one of those places similar to Ames and Lubbock and Waco now with the new arena that, you just don't really go in there and win. Like you really have to put together a great effort to beat them in their place. It's tough to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and a big win for West Virginia last night, 77-67 over UCF. I think we're getting to the point where we're seeing the teams that are not going to make the tournament in the Big 12, which at one point you thought, man, if this keeps going the way it is, they're going to get, 12 in. Mm-hmm. But right now, to me, it looks like the cutoff line is probably Oklahoma or Cincinnati. I don't think Kansas State, if they continue on this path, is going to get in. So I would say that Oklahoma would be the last one, and that puts 9 teams in. And then maybe Cincinnati, if they
figure it out here down the
stretch. They can figure it out down the they're good. They're just not, they're 6-7, just like, or they're 5-7 right now. So we'll see. But I think UCF, West Virginia, and we knew Oklahoma State, who knows, but I think UCF's kind of out of it now, although they've proved themselves better than we all thought they'd be going in, and Johnny Dawkins has something to build on. So I think we know where we're going now, and Houston's just so damn good. They're just so damn good. They play so hard.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like Kelvin Sampson gives them the Gene Hackman Hoosier speech at every timeout. Not just every game.
Every media timeout.
Every media timeout, they come running out.
Yeah, aside from the first 3 games of conference play, they've just been a machine.
It's like he's just running to 1 minute he's Gene Hackman, then he's Pacino from Any Given Sunday. He's just going through the
Herb Brooks and Miracle.
Channeling just all the different great sports movie speeches. He's Rick Moranis for Little Giants. But, all right, 8 minutes left. Garrett, you ready?
Let's do it.
NFL Draft Rapid Fire. So yesterday we spoke at length about Brock Bowers. So today I want to dive into 4 quarterback needy teams that draft after the top 3. And that would be the Falcons, the Broncos, the Vikings, and the Raiders. So if you're one of those 4 teams and you can't trade into the top 3, and you haven't, let's just assume one of them trades for Justin Fields and it's not you. Do you draft J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, or Michael Penix, or do you wait and see how it falls later in the round and take what is sure to be a higher-ranked player than those 3?
I think it's situational. If I was the Falcons, I would consider taking – this is funny because I think I clowned in the sky last week. If I was the Falcons, I would consider taking J.J. McCarthy because I think that he's a guy that could function in a run-heavy offense with Bijan Robinson. And if you try to kind of build from there, the Broncos, I think you wait and you take a higher-rated player. I just don't see – there are just so many needs there. Where do you think Russell Wilson ends up, Paul?
I think Russell Wilson's part of this equation as well. Because Kirk Cousins is part of this equation. Russell Wilson to Minnesota makes a little bit of sense if Kirk Cousins decides he's going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
They affect this in a lot of ways. And if I'm Minnesota and say I re-sign Kirk Cousins, I might still draft Michael Penix in the second round if he's there. just because I know that, like, we're towards the end of Kirk Cousins. By the way, saw him at the Super Bowl on McAfee. He was at McAfee's set. Moving around pretty good. So, I mean, not that he's running. It wasn't like he was.
Yeah, he wasn't doing sprints.
He wasn't throwing routes, but, you know, a lot of times you don't see the injured guys on Radio Row at all because they don't want, you know, every camera to watch them limping in. But he looked pretty good. So, looked like he's on his way to recovery.
I think my concern with all those teams, what was the third team you mentioned? Falcons, Broncos, and who else?
Vikings and Raiders.
Okay.
The Raiders are at 13. And so Antonio Pierce has an interesting problem. He did such a good job. He rallied them just to the point out of where they can for sure
have an impact player.
The guy that they want, you know, and they're probably going to have to trade up, or they're going to have to trade for Justin Fields.
I just don't see any of those teams other than the Broncos, maybe with Sean Payton, even though I feel like we're a little past this. Like, none of them have QB whisperer coaches, right? Or, I mean, all those players that we mentioned, I think Penix will be the most kind of pro-ready at the moment. But you're talking about three guys that are, I would consider projects at the next level, which means you either have to let them sit and wait, or you have to have somebody on staff who's going to mold them and put them in a place to be successful. And I just don't really see any coaching staff that really fits that bill. Yeah. But I mean, you got to do something.
Yeah. Garrett, what do you do?
Man, I'm still up in the air on McCarthy. Like, I don't know if I would draft him or not. I know there's people that say he's going to be a star. I didn't see enough from him during his time at Michigan to think that he can come in and lead my franchise in the NFL to success. I just haven't seen it. I would take Penix, and I would still be kind of leery on Bo Nix as well. But I think it also comes down to situational things, and whichever works for one of those franchises.
Yeah, I'm not sold on J.J. McCarthy, although every draft expert seems to kind of be high on him because of the tools. Now, Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, is a really good follow and a guy to read, and we've had him on the show several times. I hope we get him on here soon about the draft, because there's a difference between what guys can do and what they've been asked to do in college. So the example I'll give you is the shotgun. Like, so many teams run out of the shotgun now. Yeah, I remember hearing Bryce Petty's like, I haven't been under center since I was like a sophomore in high school. And so he never did it at Baylor. So it had been like 7 years since he'd actually done that. Yeah. And so he had like in Senior Bowl, like they're putting him under center because they want to see him do that. And it was challenging for him because he just hadn't done it. And it seems like one of those things that you should just know how to do. Now, sometimes guys can just go, okay, fine, boop, boop, got it. And because they're never asked to do it doesn't mean they can. You know, route tree is one of those things where there are receivers that run those kind of, you know, spread offenses. They don't have like the real route tree, you know. But then when okay, can you do this and this? And they're like, yeah. And they go do it. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, they just nobody ever told them they had to. So I think that might be a little bit the case with J.J. McCarthy in that Michigan was just so good being that power offense that they're like, you know, we have this club in our bag, but, you know, if we're going to drive the green every time, we don't really need to use it. So, which is kind of how they did it. Right. So I'm willing to wait and see, but I get it. Like, there's nothing I've seen from him other than the fact that, like, he's really athletic, he's got a good strong arm, and he's got moxie, man. Like, he is, like, you know, if you told me, like, hey, I need somebody who's going to, you know, go win the game for me and, like, keep it, you know, here and here. Yeah, J.J. McCarthy, I'll buy it. He's the one who took Michigan over the top. Like, to me, he was the X factor. They could have gotten all the other dudes, you know, like Joe Burrow, who's immensely, in my opinion, more talented than J.J. McCarthy.
Yes.
The reason that Joe Burrow took an LSU team that was constantly tripping over its own feet was that he had not only the skill that they've been lacking at quarterback, but he had it here and here where, like, none of the other guys did. Yeah. You know, J.J. McCarthy's got that. Like, he's not afraid of anything. There's not a situation like, hey, look, we're down 10 points. There's only 4 minutes left. Like, you need to go score in like a minute and a half, and then, like, we're probably going to have to do it in less time than that when we get the ball back. Like, okay, I got it. That's fine. It's mathematically possible. You don't have to. I won't stress about it. You know. So that's where I think he is. But I don't know. Like, it's one of those weird things. It's one of those weird things. if I'm the Raiders, I'm doing everything I can to trade up and hoping against hope that the Patriots don't want a quarterback. Like they're just like, we have too much to build before we go get that quarterback and we don't want to ruin him.
Right.
Like there's too much to do. We're just going to wait. We may draft one later, like Michael Pratt or somebody like that. But right now we've got we need to rebuild this whole thing. So let's not ruin a quarterback.
It'd also be curious to see what the Pats do because, I mean, they could we're not really reach, but they could draft Marvin Harrison Jr., but then it's like, is that where you want to start your rebuilds with wide receiver, even one as pro-ready as he is? But, yeah, I mean, I think the Raiders, they've got some pieces, and they're playing hard for Antonio Pierce. So if you have a game-changing quarterback, that kind of changes the whole equation.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, it's 2:00. So that means we're done. And now I get to show Steven Unfrozen Caveman Lawyer sketches. Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. Again, we're going to, Steven, might interest you in being involved in our upcoming College Football 25 League.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, there we go. We've got Steven on board. So I'm pretty sure we can probably get all of our rotating co-hosts involved.
It's going down.
It's not something that people from our generation are going to say no to.
This is what we do.
It kind of feels like when a new Spider-Man movie comes out. Like, even though we should be too old for Spider-Man, we're like, no, absolutely, I'm in.
We're all going on premiere night. Yeah.
Where is that little rascal? Let's go crawl some walls, buddy. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. We've got a really good show. Sam Conn. Do we have Stuart Mandel today?
Yeah, Stuart Mandel, Sam Conn. Hang on here. Then we got Chuck Cooperstein and Jason Shearer.
Okay, yeah, there we go. And then the top 5 that I have yet to do, Emery, and I'm well aware of that. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling